All right, everyone. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that gets brought up all the time in the Twitch live stream, and it's actually a question, and it's what is going to be the cheaper option here? Is it going to be cheaper in order to enhance gear yourself, or is it going to be cheaper to just buy it off the market? And I'll tell you guys the general simple answer here at the start. Now, this isn't going to apply for every situation, so obviously I'll give the detailed breakdown throughout this video. But the general simple answer to that question is going to be in almost all circumstances, it is going to be much cheaper for you to buy the gear off the market. And it's actually crazy how much cheaper it's going to be for a lot of gear to just buy it from the market than it is going to be in order to enhance it yourself. Now, like I said, though, that's the very simple answer right there, and that's not going to apply for all gear. That's not going to apply for all circumstances. It gets a bit more complicated than that, so I really wanted to get into the breakdown here of like what it might end up costing you in order to enhance gear yourself versus like what it might cost you to just buy it off the market. Now, I'll also say here, very importantly, and this is something I've seen in the comments in the last couple of videos, is like another thing with just buying the gear off the market is, first of all, in almost all situations, it's going to be the cheaper choice. Like, you're going to end up saving a lot of silver. It's going to be efficient. It's going to be the way to go. And it also doesn't rely on luck, right? Some people like luck. Some people like the little gamble. If you enjoy the process, then that's totally fine. But with enhancing, you also have to rely on luck, and you never really know how lucky or unlucky you're going to get. So you can't really truly expect a result. Whereas if you go to the market and you buy something, you can expect to get what you just paid for, right? You're going to just get that item. It's going to get sent right to you. You can equip it. It's yours. 100% chance, guaranteed progression gains if you save up the silver. So like, I know that that's an option that might be very appealing. And it's very important for me to emphasize that, like, if you do go with the other one, which is to enhance your gear, first of all, it's not going to be the better option in terms of silver in most situations and for most pieces of gear. And then on top of that, you also have to rely on luck, and you have to also know what you are doing. And this is something I really want to emphasize in this video, is there's a couple of really major mistakes that a lot of people make with enhancing. They do decide to go with that choice. They want to go with, you know what? I don't want to buy it. I want to make it. I want my name on my item. I don't care. I'm going to do it whatever it takes. And then on top of that, you still need to know what you're doing, or it's going to cost even more. So it's really not easy, and I say this a lot when I'm streaming and I do all my enhancing. Like, we do so much enhancing every single day, guys. It is not easy. It's difficult in every way. Like, you've got to figure a lot of stuff out. You got to be able to handle a lot of bad luck. You got to be able to handle things not going your way. And on top of that, you need to make sure you know what you're doing, or it's going to cost you even more silver. And obviously, we'll just go with a couple simple examples here, and I'll kind of do the explanation here as to probably the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to enhancing their pens and why it costs them so much more silver than what you might think. And if we look at Xarkas, I know I've talked about Xarkas before in a couple other videos, but this is like the textbook classic example of a pen that is just like unbelievably better to just buy it off the market. Like, enhancing one of these yourself is going to cost you potentially like twice as much. The average cost, by the way, is going to be close to like twice as much as what it costs for you in order to buy one. So basically, you could buy two of them for basically the same price that it's going to cost you to enhance it yourself. And there's a couple of reasons why. Obviously, like, Xarkas are a weapon, and a lot of people like to go for weapons for the first items that they enhance, so there's going to be just more of them out there because a lot of people are working on it. But also, you've got that competition now with the Blackstar, Tet Blackstar, and whatnot. So you've got something else that is also a consideration. So, like, if you do go for this, just know that, like, this is one where it's like a clear-cut case of buying it is going to be way, way, way better in terms of silver. You save yourself a headache, you save yourself the RNG, and it's just, unless you really want your name on the item, you are paying a very, very big price for your name on the item. Now, another thing is there's very few items that have the potential to actually be better to enhance yourself. And you'll notice that, like, when I'm streaming and doing my enhancing, like, there's very particular items that I actually work on, and honestly, there's not really that many. Like, there's a decent amount of items out there that you can take to pen. You've got all your weapons, you've got your awakenings, you've got your sub-weapons, you've got all the different types of armor, you've got 2 different pieces for each. So, like, there's a decent collection of yellow boss gear out there in order to potentially take up to pen. But notice how, like, a lot of the times I'll only be working on a couple pieces. And there's a very particular reason why, is when I'm enhancing, I am doing this for silver. I'm enhancing for profit. We're close to 200 billion silver made over the last couple of months, enhancing all day long and really doing it very particularly in order to make money. And in order to do that, we have to work on the best items. And unfortunately, there's only a couple items that actually even make sense to really enhance yourself out of all the items that are out there. And then on top of that, remember that point that I said, on top of that, you also have to know what you are doing in order for that to be the case. Because now, even if you do go with one of these very few items that has the potential to be better to enhance yourself, if you mess up or if you don't know what you're doing, well, now it's going to be more expensive than just buying it. So let's go take a look at this, and I want to explain something very important, the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to penning their boss gear. Notice again that the price of like a Pen Zarka is 12.6 billion silver. You got them sitting at that price, under 13 billion silver. Now, if we end up going to like, a Griffin helmet, for example, which is one of the contenders here right now for an item that you can potentially save a little bit of silver. And it's not going to be that much, by the way. It's going to be a couple hundred million, maybe $1 billion, and this is assuming average luck. You also have to gamble, too. If you get unlucky, that's it. It's just going to be cheaper for you to buy it. Now, obviously, if you get lucky, well, that's a whole different story, but you never want to really rely on good luck. But this is one of those contenders here. Notice already how the price is quite a bit higher than the Zarka. Another important thing that I will mention for NA folks is that different boss gear actually has different costs for Cron stones. I'm not going to get super into detail in Cronning in this video because that's a whole different complication on its own. But this also has to do with, like, you need to know what you're doing because every piece of gear has its own cost to Cron. Notice how, like, the Griffin's helmet and the Red Nose and, then the Urgons. Like, Urgons cost a lot more Cron stones. That's really important. If you don't know what you're doing there, well, now you've just lost a lot of silver, and now it's just going to be cheaper for you to buy your gear. So there's a lot of potential places in the enhancing process to mess up and have it cost you more than what it would cost you in order to just buy it. You really need to know what you're doing. You need to do it right. And then, even then, like, the margins, the amount of that you might save is going to be very little in comparison to, just the massive headache less that you would go through if you just bought it yourself. I truly enjoyed doing this. Like, I really do. It's kind of like a brain puzzle for me. I enjoy, doing this kind of stuff on stream, and it's kind of like a challenge for me, right? I would not be doing this if I really needed silver. Like, it's just going to be better to grind, even for me. I'm not a big fan of grinding either, but for almost everyone, like, this is a terrible, terrible way to try to make silver. Not only is it very gambly, but you need to have a very big handle on this kind of stuff in order to even stand a chance. So now another thing that the biggest mistake that people mess up on is let's go to raw tapping, which is where you're going to be doing your pen attempts without Cron stones. So if you do fail, you end up downgrading. These are very, very expensive to do. Very expensive, because basically what happens is, and this is one way to visualize the price. It's not 100% exact, but it just gets you that sense of knowing that it is very expensive to do this. So if you take like a Tet Griffin helmet, you'll see that they're a little over 2 billion silver each, right? 2.25. If you fail a pen attempt, it's going to downgrade back down to try, right? So once again, the Tet price, 2.25 or so. And then if you downgrade a try, well, now it's basically lost half of its value or so. Now it goes from a 2.2 billion silver item to a 1 billion silver item. And don't take the exact numbers too seriously. Like, the main point of this is seeing how much value it loses. It's a lot. It's $1 billion or so silver in that general ballpark. Basically, you could think of it as like every raw pen attempt that you do, at least here on the NA market, is going to cost you like around $1 billion or so silver. That's very expensive. Now, if you look at the price of like a Tet and you look at the price of a pen, that gives you a pretty general idea of like how many attempts do you have in order to hit it before it's just going to be better for you in order to have bought it, right? And it's not as many as you might think. You can see here, like, the Tet is about 2.2. The pens are like, 17 to 18. This is pretty expensive. We're in a reasonable market. Sometimes these are $1 billion silver or so less. Don't forget all the market taxes and everything too. Like, that complicates things a bit. Basically, it's the numbers like 15-ish, plus or minus, like in that general ballpark. But basically, like, if you don't get it in 15 or so attempts, then basically it would have been better for you in order to just buy it off the market. Now, a really big problem is if you actually take a look at the odds in order to end up hitting a pen, if you start on the fail stack level that a lot of people like to start on, and there's nothing particularly wrong with this fail stack level. It's how people handle their fail stacks that's a really big mistake, and I'll explain in detail what I mean by this. But if you do start at like 110 fail stacks, a pretty standard place to start your pen attempts, you only have a 3.6% chance in order to succeed. That's very low. It's gonna take a lot more than 15 attempts on average with that, even though you do get fail stack levels. So now, like, you know, if we fail one, we get 6 fail stack levels. It goes up a little bit, and every one of these is like basically we're failing one, but still, you know, that's not like a whole lot. It's still gonna take you a lot more than an average of 15 or so attempts, even if you do include fail stack levels. And a general baseline that I like to say is like it's going to be more likely for you to get to 200 fail stack levels than it's going to be for you to get your pen. Like if you start at 110 and you fail all the way and you get to 200 fail stacks, like that's not really unlucky at that point. That happens all the time. It's actually the more likely outcome than getting your pen item. I believe the average is somewhere in the low 200s, like 210 to 225 or so, is about like the 50-50 point. But then after that, of course, you know, the fail stack levels really ramp up, and at that point, it's very difficult to go from 200 to 300, not so difficult to really go from 100 to 200. But either way, like even if you get to 200, like if you start at 110 fail stacks, every single attempt is going to be plus 6 fail stack levels. So if you get all the way to 200, that's 15 attempts right there, basically. That's kind of like the point that you have in order to have it be okay. Like if it now takes you more than that, then basically it would have been better for you in order to have bought your pen off the market. Now, a really big mistake that a lot of people make is not understanding why it's so expensive to raw tap it. And an insane amount of the value in your pen attempts is actually not going to necessarily be in the actual item itself, but it's going to be in the fail stack levels. And this is what is really going to distinguish like a casual enhancer from somebody who might be enhancing for profit, or somebody who has a much bigger game plan than just working on one particular item. Because remember that every single fail that you do is going to end up giving you those 6 fail stack levels. And it might not really seem like a lot to start off here, but as you get closer and closer to like, you know, 200 fail stacks or whatever, those levels start to become very, very valuable and very, very useful for things other than pen boss gear. Your options really start to open up to things like pen black star once you start to get into the 200s. They start to open up for like pen accessories as well. And that fail stack has a lot of value at that point. And if you don't really have a very particular use for a big fail stack, which is pretty highly likely that you're going to get for doing your pen attempts, if you don't really have a use for that, you're basically just wasting a lot of the value and a lot of the money that you're spending on your pen attempts, because you're paying for it. You're paying for it, really. It's factored into the price of the item. It's part of the price of doing clicks and pen attempts. You're paying for it anyway, so if you're not going to use that stack for something else, if you have no plans for it, you're basically setting yourself back because you're just going to be missing out on a whole lot of value. So if you do decide to go for pen attempts, like another big thing that you have to consider is, what if I get to a high fail stack? Like, what am I going to use that for? What am I going to do with it? Am I just going to keep tapping for pens and have no clue? Because if you're going to do that, like, you're basically just giving up a lot of the value. I'm not saying it's bad to continue clicking past 200 fail stacks. That's fine, as long as you know what you're doing with that fail stack. What are you going to do with it? What are you trying to get to? Are you trying to get to 250 for pen black star? Are you trying to get to, you know, maybe 230 for a pen accessory? If you have no idea what you're doing with that fail stack, then you're just missing out a lot of the value, and you're basically spending a bunch of money for something that you don't even know what you're spending on. So that's one of the big things that a lot of people do that I know it's a bit crazy, but that's going to make your pen attempts more expensive. So if you don't have a good handle on that kind of stuff, then once again, the best option is just quite simply going to be to buy your pens. So I know that I could get into even more detail, but I'm going to leave it here for this video because this sort of stuff gets pretty complicated, and I think that was probably a good enough point to kind of end things off on. I think you guys get the idea. If you obviously have more questions or more, you want more info on this kind of stuff, feel free to stop by the Twitch live stream, twitch.tv/Salt. I talk about this stuff all day long. We're enhancing all day long, so I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything like that. Feel free to stop by or just watch the enhancing, 10 billion plus silver of enhancing every single day, and enjoy the show, because I think this is pretty good for the video for today. So I hope this helped out. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a like, consider subscribing to the channel for more, and I will see you guys all very soon. Take it easy, everyone.